I got Kim Porter's autopsy report, and we need to talk about some discrepancies.
She was the fashion model, actress, and world-famous mother to Diddy's kids.
She was gonna expose everything. I heard it was tell all.
A shocked and devastated Diddy spotted at the home where his ex suddenly and mysteriously died.
Power. He loves the ability to manipulate and control people.
14 respond within his 76 on scene with a cardiac arrest.
Her good friend Kimora Lee Simmons appearing inconsolable at the house.
What kind of demonic mind you have to be that far gone where that shit don't bother you with somebody that you love?
TMZ reporting she had been suffering from flu-like symptoms and possibly pneumonia, but an official cause has yet to be released.
And I hope she did her book on Google Docs somewhere that is floating in the cloud of the internet that somebody could go get it one day.
Kim died from pneumonia, but there's the first coroner's report that said it was ruled a homicide and they found toxins in her body to prove that she had been poisoned. You know, they have poisons that create heart attack and pneumonia-like symptoms.
One of Kim's final Instagram posts, this message: "I trust in divine timing. The universe has my back."
It's in that internet cloud. You just gotta go get it.
So, Kimberly Antoinette Porter is one of Diddy's exes and one of the women who is the mother to Diddy's children. Now, Kim Porter is also exes with Al B. Sure, who is another music industry executive type of guy or whatever. Well, Al B. Sure was in a coma recently, and he has come out and basically implied that Diddy put him in that coma.
We are going to be producing the Al B. Sure life story. So hold on to your britches. You'll really understand how I ended up in a coma. You're really going to need to call Homeland Security.
So we can talk about that on another day, but Kim Porter is no longer with us. Obviously, she has passed away. Now, if you go to the news today in 2024, what you will find is that Kim Porter died from pneumonia. In particular, it is reported that she died from a specific type of pneumonia called lobar pneumonia. Now, we will get into what exactly that is as we go into the autopsy results. And just to give a disclaimer, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but just because, you know, some people are dense, I am not a doctor. I'm not a coroner. I'm not a medical examiner. I am a lawyer who gave up my license to make YouTube videos. Okay. So I'm not in any way an expert on looking at these autopsy results or anything like that. I mean, that being said, if you're a coroner or a medical examiner and you want to give some insight into what we're going to look at today, that would be great. Hit me up. That's surprisewitness@gmail.com. This is just commentary and opinion on what I believe and what I think and what I can decipher from this public record. You might be wondering, how did I get this autopsy result? Well, you can get it too. If you live in the United States, at least, you can request this and they will send it to your house. I mean, they were banging on my door 2 days ago trying to give it to me. I did not know that they were going to deliver it like that, certified mail, and be knocking on my door. That was a little scary. But if you look at the news, you will see that Kim Porter's cause of death is pneumonia. Now, that guy, Al B. Sure, one of Kim's exes, the one who was in a coma and miraculously recovered from the coma, he's had like a liver transplant and everything else. And now he's pretty much blaming Diddy for all of his health concerns, and he's going to write a tell-all book or do a documentary or something. Well, that guy, Al B. Sure, has come out and said he doesn't think that this was just some simple pneumonia death. Now, I am going to be doing an entire investigation on Kim Porter's death and her autopsy results and some of these discrepancies and some of the things people have been saying. That video is going to come out on BJ Investigates. But today, I really wanted to focus on the top things that I found in the autopsy results that cannot be reconciled with what I saw being reported in the media. Now, there is a whistleblower on all this P. Diddy stuff. Her name is Jaguar Wright. She is formerly a backup singer, and she was involved, I believe, with Jay-Z. And she's come out and done a bunch of interviews, and she's spilled a lot of tea. A lot of stuff she's been saying for years. And this has actually now finally been confirmed or verified or validated in some way in these court filings, either be it from Cassie, Joy Dickerson Neal, or Lil Rod, or whoever, what have you. So, Jaguar Wright has come out and said that this autopsy result is not actually the original autopsy result. She's come out and said that actually there was this guy, this doctor, medical examiner, whatever, Ed Winter, essentially saying that Kim Porter was poisoned and there needed to be some more tests done. And this one that we have today is actually just kind of a cover up autopsy.
Kim died from pneumonia, but there's the first coroner's report that said that she died. It was ruled a homicide, and they found toxins in her body to prove that she had been poisoned.
So I had all that in mind when I received this autopsy result. So yeah, TLDR, if you look it up today, if you look up Kim Porter cause of death, you'll see that she died from pneumonia. But there is all this sort of background stuff going on, having to do with Albie Shore not thinking that she died from pneumonia, Jaguar Wright not thinking that she died from pneumonia, and Gene Deal has even come out and said that he thinks that definitely Diddy had something to do with this death. Aubrey O'Day has also claimed that Diddy might have had something to do with this death. It's been reported that Kimora Lee Simmons also perhaps believes that Diddy had something to do with this. So there's all that going on in the background. But if you were keeping up with the story at the time that it was being reported, which is all the way back in 2018, 6 years ago, then it wasn't really necessarily only being reported that she had pneumonia. It was being reported that she was having a cardiac incident. Well, TMZ, around the time that Kim Porter did pass away, they released this 911 call, and the 911 call does not say anything about pneumonia. It doesn't say anything about a cold, a flu. It just says that she's having some type of cardiac incident. Let me show y'all that right now.
Agent 76, Rescue 82, cardiac arrest. Agent 76, you're going to get EMS 14. EMS 14, respond with Agent 76 on scene of the cardiac arrest.
Very clearly, you can hear the dispatcher saying cardiac arrest, and he says it twice. He says 2 times cardiac arrest.
Cardiac arrest. The heart has stopped pumping blood effectively. This is usually because the electrical signals in your heart have gone wrong. The brain isn't getting enough oxygen, so the person becomes unconscious. They won't be breathing normally or at all.
I'm not a doctor. Maybe pneumonia can cause cardiac arrest. But even on her autopsy report, it doesn't say cardiac arrhythmia or cardiac arrest is what killed her. It doesn't even list it as a secondary cause. You know, sometimes it'll say like primary cause of death, secondary cause, contributing factor. It doesn't say that cardiac arrest was in any way responsible for her death. And that's not the only thing that was talking about a cardiac arrest. For example, here is an Us Weekly article from November 20th, 2018 that says Kim Porter's cause of death is deferred after autopsy. And this is from around the time that she died. She did die on the 15th. So this is 5 days after she died. And they're saying, look, we did an autopsy and it's been deferred. Her cause of death, we still need more answers. So this is right in the thick of when everyone was trying to figure out what was going on with Kim Porter. And as you can see, they cite that TMZ call, suffering from cardiac arrest, while reported that she had been battling flu-like symptoms and possibly pneumonia. So you do see in the newspaper reportings, Us Weekly, you know, the tabloid reportings, that they are relying on this cardiac arrest incident. And you also see other tabloids, Page 6, for example, coming out and saying that her cause of death, this is one day after she died. Page 6 comes out and says the following.
The model, actress, and longtime girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs died unexpectedly yesterday, and there were reports suffering from pneumonia and died of cardiac arrest at home.
There were reports that she was suffering from pneumonia and died of cardiac arrest at home. Okay, so this is Page 6. So we have 2 different tabloids reporting this, and we have a purported 911 call which says that she was in cardiac arrest. Now, there's something else that was being reported a lot in the news at this time, and it was people were saying that she had the flu. They were saying people need to get their flu shots. This is what happens when you don't get a flu shot. You need to get a flu shot, whatever. Kim Porter, flu. I can report to you that at least this autopsy report tested negative for every single type of flu, and we can talk about that later. So it wasn't flu. And there was one other thing that they were constantly relying on and saying, even as soon as one single day after Kim Porter died, sources close to Kim Porter were coming out and saying she had been battling pneumonia. Okay. Now, just for timeline purposes, she died in November. Her cause of death being pneumonia wasn't announced until late January. So it was almost 3 months. That's not particularly unusual. Like that in and of itself is not unusual because a lot of times they have to wait like 6 weeks to, up to 3, sometimes 6 months, depending on how backed up a lab is, in order to get the toxicology report, the tox screening, the drug tests, basically from the blood and all that. So it was about 2.5 to 3 months that had went by before we all were informed that her cause of death was in fact indeed ruled pneumonia. But just one single day after she did pass away, they have all these like sources close, allegedly, apparently close to Kim Porter saying that she was battling with pneumonia. Well, again, the coroner's report and the autopsy results do dispute that. And that is a big deal. Let me show y'all some of the things I'm talking about so you're not just taking my word for it. So here is a newspaper article from the Longview Daily News, and this is only the next day after she passed away. Kim Porter, former model and Diddy's ex, has died. Now, it was syndicated from the LA Times, and look right here. Porter's body was found by law enforcement officials around midday Thursday. That is also not what the autopsy results and the coroner's report say. The investigation report here says that she was found by family members. Well, again, we're going to get into the specifics of what it says in here, but I just want to point out where the media isn't quite exactly correct in their reporting on what you might have heard. Basically, the point of this video is to fact check the reporting that was going on with the facts. Now, is this actually the facts? That could be disputed. We will get into that. But this you can rely on in a public record. You can rely on this because you're supposed to be able to, right? Okay. So this article right here, it says a source allegedly linked to Porter told TMZ she had been suffering from pneumonia recently, right? In another article, this one is from thesource.com. The very next day after Kim Porter died, she died on November 15th, this November 16th. And look at the title. Kim Porter was reportedly battling pneumonia for weeks, treated with saline and vitamins before death. Keep that in mind too. And I think most alarming to me is this BET article. This one came out just 5 days after Kim Porter had died, and it says everything you need to know about the infection that killed Kim Porter, Bernie Mac, and more stars. It's easy to treat, yet people die from it every year. And look, the late Kim Porter's friends and family are still mourning over the shocking news of her tragic and sudden death, though medical examiners and the Los Angeles coroners still haven't confirmed the cause of Kim's death. Okay, hold on. What in the hell is BET doing running an article titled Everything You Need to Know About the Infection That Killed Her, whenever the medical examiners and the coroners haven't even figured it out yet? One more time. The title of the article is Everything You Need to Know About What Killed Her. And it says the actual doctors who are making this determination haven't even figured it out yet. But somehow BET is reporting that it killed her. I think that's irresponsible at best. Look, sources cite that Diddy's ex was suffering from pneumonia in the time leading up to her death. And apparently a lot of other people have died from pneumonia, including Miles Davis, Bernie Mac, Stan Lee, James Brown, Harriet Tubman, and Brittany Murphy, and her husband who lived in a house that Brittany lived in. Look, some are using her death to advocate for the flu vaccine. Others are confused how people die from the common lung infection. So why exactly do some people, especially those as young as Kim Porter, die from the flu-like illness pneumonia? We find out. Okay, so if I didn't have this autopsy report and I didn't read it very carefully line by line already, I would be like, yeah, I mean, people close to her were reporting that she had been suffering with pneumonia. She had a hard time fighting it off. The only thing they did was give her saline and vitamins. So no wonder she couldn't fight it off. She needed medicine or whatever, right? And there was one other thing that was being reported at the time of Kim Porter's death, and that was that she had been hospitalized and she had been staying in a hospital. Now, 3 days after that BET article, they still hadn't figured out Kim Porter's cause of death. And they were still reporting that the cause of death announcement had been deferred pending additional investigation. And this was according to the LA County Department of Medical Examiner Coroner's Office.
Back here at home, news tonight in the death of model and actress Kim Porter. The LA County coroner now calling for, quote, additional investigation, saying the cause of death is deferred for further testing.
On November 24th, they have Kim Porter's funeral. This is 9 days after she died. They had her funeral in Georgia, where she's from, but still no further clarity on what the coroners were going to say her cause of death was. So if it was so obvious and so clear that even the likes of BET was reporting everything you need to know about how she died, it's unclear to me how the doctors working on this case weren't able to just release a cause of death. So again, like I said, months goes by. It's like 2 months, 3 months later, and finally they do release her cause of death, and they do say that it is pneumonia. But the specific type of pneumonia that they are saying that Kim Porter did die from is called lobar pneumonia. And of course, y'all know I did look that up. And I think this is as a reliable source as any. This is Yale Medicine's website, yalemedicine.org. Lobar pneumonia is a type of pneumonia characterized by the infection and inflammation of one or more lobes of the lung. It is typically caused by bacteria, most commonly Streptococcus pneumonia, and can lead to symptoms such as fever, cough, and difficulty breathing. So Streptococcus is strep, like strep throat. So it's interesting to me that the most common cause of this particular type of pneumonia is Streptococcus pneumonia bacteria. Keep that in mind. Just on the first page alone, there is evidence of some type of, quote, blunt trauma. And it says left bicep contusion. That's the first page. I'm just telling y'all what I see on the first page. Now, on the second page, it does say there is a puncture wound of the posterior aspect of the right hand. There's not been post-mortem intervention for organ procurement. So there's a puncture wound on the top of her right hand. Also, there is green discoloration of the lower abdomen. I don't know what that's about, but I did want to mention it in case one of y'all does know what that means. And then we get basically a story of what happened and what they were told happened. So this is in the summary and opinion part, and let's read this together. This 47-year-old woman, Kimberly Antoinette Porter, died of lobar pneumonia. And remember, lobar pneumonia is a type of pneumonia that is specifically caused by a bacteria, and in most cases, it is caused by the strep bacteria. According to reports, the summary says, Ms. Porter was reportedly not feeling well with flu-like symptoms for approximately 4 days. She recently visited Africa, but she returned about a month before she died. And she was pretty much fine until about 4 days ago. So they're kind of saying, don't blame Africa for this. It goes on to say, on November 7th, 8 days before she died, she was experiencing throat pain, which would make sense if she had strep, right? And called a physician to request azithromycin. Now, I did look up what azithromycin is, and it is an antibiotic that is used to treat bacterial infections. It will not work if you have a virus, if you have a cold, or if you have a flu, but it will work on bacteria. So she called a doctor to request azithromycin, an antibiotic. She was seen by a physician on November 12th. Okay, hold on. On November 7th, she was experiencing throat pain and called a physician to request azithromycin, but she was not seen by a physician until the 12th. 5 days went by before the doctor ever showed up and she was calling for antibiotics. That's a little bit interesting in my opinion. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. So when she saw that physician, finally 5 days later, when he decided to show up, or she, now I'm starting to wonder, is it the one that offed Michael Jackson? Is that man still in jail? We need to check. Did Fahim Shaheem Muhammad, or whatever his name is, send this doctor too? That's what I'm wondering. When that doctor finally bothered to show up 5 days later on the 12th, he noted that Kim had cold and flu-like symptoms, including nasal congestion. She had sweats, a mild cough, body aches, and a sore throat. Still, 5 days of sore throat. She had a temperature of 102 degrees with, look what it says, with flu and strep throat test being negative. Now, is there a difference between Streptococcus bacteria in your throat and Streptococcus bacteria in your lungs? Somebody who's a doctor or something, comment down below and let me know. But it's interesting to me that lobar pneumonia is most commonly, according to yalemedicine.org, lobar pneumonia is most commonly caused by the Streptococcus pneumoniae virus. But her strep throat test was negative. Okay. Also, her flu test was negative. This is when she was still alive. I don't know why this camera started blurring. I was trying to add the like overhead camera thing so I could show y'all. It was like a whole fiasco. I don't know why it's blurry now, but I'm in the middle of recording, so I'm not going to change it. Okay, so it never does say whether or not she was actually given these antibiotics. And what do we learn about this lobar pneumonia? It's a bacterial infection, which would most likely respond to antibiotics, but it doesn't say that the physician prescribed her the azithromycin antibiotic. What it says is she called on the 7th to request it, and it says that a physician did see her on the 12th. But it does not say that a physician did prescribe those medications to her. And that's interesting to me because it does say that he prescribed or she prescribed other medications. Let's read on. So the flu and the strep tests were negative. She was given Toradol by intramuscular route and was given intravenous fluids, including saline and vitamins. Toradol is like ibuprofen, sort of anti-inflammatory. It's for pain. So they gave her a pain medication. Now, it's not like the same as like, opioid pain medicine or something, but it's like an anti-inflammatory pain medication. So they gave her Toradol and IV fluids, including saline and vitamins, but they did not give her, according to this, any antibiotics. So she's literally dying from pneumonia at this point, and nobody bothered to give her an antibiotic, despite the fact that she specifically requested a doctor give her an antibiotic. That's interesting. But the saline and vitamins thing, I mean, I know the Scientologists, they just give vitamin B12 for everything. If you're going through detox at one of their centers and one of the, a drug detox, alcohol detox, something like that, they'll give you vitamin B12 in the, what's it called? Narcanon or whatever they do, those houses that they have over there. So again, on the 7th, she called and asked for antibiotics. 5 days later, the 12th, the doctor finally bothers to show up, doesn't give her antibiotics, but instead gives her an anti-inflammatory pain medication, IV fluids, which I'm sure she was dehydrated, so I'm sure she did need the saline fluids, and vitamins. But it does not say that he gave her any antibiotics, or she. I don't know if the doctor was a boy or a girl. They didn't tell us. The very next day, after the doctor finally bothered to show up and see Kim Porter, she called the doctor back and explained that she didn't have any appetite. She wasn't hungry. At which point, a nurse then came by and gave her more IV fluids and more vitamins. Again, the woman is dying from a bacterial infection in her lungs, and they never gave her an antibiotic, even though she specifically asked for one. The next day after that, she's coughing up blood, and she got a massage from her goddaughter. Now, it says she was watching television with people, and subsequently she went to bed. She was later found unresponsive and pronounced dead at the scene. Now, this found unresponsive thing does contradict a little bit with what they tried to tell us in the public record. Because what did they tell us? What did TMZ report? That she was having a cardiac arrest. So was she found in the middle of a heart attack, or was she found unresponsive? And then we do see, there was also evidence of lobar pneumonia. Now, this part right here, I do have it highlighted. I do need to speak with an expert, but it says lung cultures did not grow bacteria. And I'm just a layperson. I don't know what that means, but I did look it up. And apparently, if there are bacteria in the lungs, like abnormal, and you have pneumonia or something, oftentimes you would expect to see a culture where they take basically like a little bit of a swab of the lung and they put it in a petri dish and they see if the bacteria that's in the lungs will grow. Right? If they see that if there's bacteria in there, will it grow? It says lung cultures did not grow bacteria. Then that means that it's a normal result. I looked it up and it says like an abnormal result of this would mean that the lung cultures would grow bacteria in the petri dish. And when I looked it up, it said when the bacteria in the petri dish is growing, that could be an indication of pneumonia. So if she had pneumonia and it was caused by bacteria in the lungs, I think I would expect the cultures of the lungs to grow bacteria in the petri dish. Again, if y'all are a medical expert or something, comment below. Now, it also says that they did those nose swabs and those also came back negative for any viruses. She didn't have any drugs in her system. And then they go on to define what lobar pneumonia is in this autopsy report. What they say is lobar pneumonia is an infection of the lung caused by bacteria. Okay. Immune cells, it's like, I think like white blood cells, invade the air spaces. So your lung, you're like kind of drowning. The spaces where air is supposed to be in your lungs is full with immune cells. And this is accompanied with death of some of the lung cells. Pneumonia decreases the lung's ability to take in oxygen, and over time, it can cause sudden death. So that doesn't make any sense to me. Over time, it can cause sudden death. Is it over time or is it sudden? Because sudden means somebody dropped a house on you, you died. How is it over time it can cause sudden death? Also, something about gram strands were negative. So it was like a bunch of different gram negative bacteria in her lungs. Some of y'all, that'll mean something. It don't mean much to me. Now, here is the picture of the kind of like model or whatever of her body. And it does show 2 scars, which appear to perhaps be some type of C-section type of scars. And the lower abdomen had turned green. And then that puncture wound on the right hand that we did talk about already. But what's really weird to me is it looks like they got the hands wrong, because in the report it says it was on her right hand, and right here it looks like it's very clearly on the left hand. Maybe I just don't know what I'm looking at, but there was also this 3-something purple contusion. And this purple contusion on her arm could be from perhaps that Toradol injection. It could be from anything, but it does remind me of an interview that Gene Deal did just 1 month ago, a former bodyguard of Diddy, who said that Kim Porter and Diddy used to get in violent fights, and she would come after him with corkscrews and on the wrist, all kind of stuff.
The first incident that I found out about Puff and Kim Porter, I was called and I had to go over to, Puff didn't have no security. He was over St. Luke's Hospital. Him and Kim had got into an incident where she had took a corkscrew his right wrist. I was asked to go over there, and right then I found out that they had an altercation. Kim looked like she was bruised up, and Puff had his wrist wrapped up in a t-shirt.
I mean, there's a history of allegations of violence between these 2 people. Then we start getting into the actual toxicology screening. They tested her for barbiturates. I'll put it in here what they tested her for, but it all came back negative. And all these tests happened January 4th, 2019, which is like 2 months after she died. And now here's the patient test result report. Again, I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking at, but it does appear to me that her potassium and her sodium and her glucose were not within the normal ranges. I don't know if that's normal. I don't know if that's not, but I'll put the chart here. Again, this was also done about 2 months after she died. They did this bacteriology report. Now this one is bacteriology, and it's called final reports. I'll show you right here where it says no growth at 48 hours, verified on 11/21. They did these stains, no organisms observed in the red blood cells. And this, as you can see, was collected on November 19th. And this one was ordered by Ode Ukpo, who actually ended up getting promoted. The man makes nearly $500,000 a year. But then there's this other bacteriology report, and I really don't know what the difference is, but this one says amended reports. Okay. So there's one bacteriology page. Now, this bacteriology report says final report, and this one was some culture they did in the lung. But this one right here I find to be interesting because it says amended report. Verified date time, November 20th. And then they name these different bacteria that were found in her blood. The first one is Fusobacterium necrophorum, which I looked this up and it looks like you can contract this from animal bites. Another one that was found in her blood is Clostridium species, not C something. And I looked that up and, according to Google, this is similar to the type of bacteria that causes botulism and tetanus. Now, all of these are apparently found in her blood. The third one says Enterococcus faecalis, and faecalis means feces. So in her blood, there was a bacteria that is found in feces, in fecal matter. And it says that you can contract it from coming into contact with feces and fecal matter. It was in her blood, though. It was in her blood. So, and then there was one final one, Citrobacter species, isolated from aerobic blood bottle. Now, this particular bacteria, I looked it up and it says it's closely related to Salmonella, and it results in intestinal infection or urinary tract. And again, y'all, I'm just Googling, okay? I would really love it if a doctor, especially in particular a medical examiner, somebody like that, could come on a live with me and go through this entire autopsy result line by line by line and explain to everybody, including me, how this works. I'm just a layperson, right? And I'm reading this. It says bacteriology, amended reports, and there's 4 different bacteria that are found in her bloodstream. Look, source, blood autopsy. This is not the same as one page before where it was a wound culture from inside her lung. They swabbed her lung. No, this is her blood. They took blood out of her body, ran tests. That's what it looks like to me. Y'all tell me. And they found 4 different types of bacteria. One of these bacteria can come from animal bites. One of these bacteria is similar to the tetanus, right? One of these comes from feces. That's the Enterococcus faecalis. And one of them is closely related to salmonella, which you can contract from eating chicken, fish, whatever. So there's 4 types of bacteria found in this woman's bloodstream. It's on this thing called Amended report. And the only thing I can think of is what was in those IV bags they gave her. You know, Michael Jackson's death was ruled a homicide. It was ruled a homicide. And the person who really blew the lid off of that whole thing was Dr. Ed Winter. Dr. Ed Winter is no longer with us. He has passed away. But Dr. Ed Winter, Jaguar Wright says, is the guy who said Kim Porter had been poisoned. Now, I will call back up there today and ask what's the deal with that, because I did not see anything about Dr. Ed Winter at all anywhere on this autopsy result. I did not see anything about him anywhere on here. There's many, many technicians and doctors and people named in here, but I don't see anything about him. So I don't know if if they're just covering it up, if that never happened. I don't know if maybe he did do something. Maybe you just wouldn't expect to find his name on that. I really don't know. I really do not know. But this is just me trying to figure out what's going on here. But is it possible to poison somebody with bacteria that you find in feces? Is it possible to be exposed to a bacteria that is similar to salmonella in the bowl of tomato soup that somebody was bringing you? I don't know. But then the next few pages, it shows you that they did all these virus tests. They even tested her for 4 strains of coronavirus. And this was 2 years before the coronavirus ever came out. You know, the COVID one, 19 or whatever. They tested her for rhinovirus, every type of flu, paraflu, all these flus, chlamydia, pneumonia, bordetella, pertussis, mycoplasma. They tested the woman for all kind of stuff. Negative. Okay. Then we get to the case report. And on the case report, we get the investigator's narrative. And this comes from 2 people. Okay, this is very important, because the cop, Detective Pettigrew, badge number 27723, Los Angeles Police Department, Valley Bureau Homicide. They sent the homicide investigator out. And the other information source, redacted. But he or she is a medical doctor. And it just makes me wonder, is this the same medical doctor that neglected to give Kim Porter any antibiotics for this pneumonia that would later kill her, take her life? We don't know. We'll never know. Is it Corey Gamble, MD? Girl, I don't know. Okay, so then we get another telling of events. And this is really what prompted me to want to make this whole video. It says on November 15th, about 1 o'clock, 1:05 p.m., Officer Villanueva, badge number 42223, from LA Police Department, North Hollywood Division, called the coroner to report an apparent natural death. Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. Because they found her in her bed, allegedly, at 11:30 a.m. The cops had shown up, paramedics shown up, and they had declared her dead by 11:40 a.m. Okay, so 11:30 a.m., somebody discovers she's either having a heart attack or unresponsive. I don't know which one it is because we have reports of both. But 11:30 a.m., they call the cops. By 11:40, 10 minutes later, everybody's done shown up and somebody has pronounced her dead. In 10 minutes, they do that. But it's an hour and a half goes by before they bother to call the coroner. Why? This is why we do timelines on this channel. It only took them 10 minutes to get to the scene, to be dispatched there, get to the scene, have paramedics there, have someone there who could actually declare her dead. 10 minutes. But it's an hour and a half before any cops bother to call the medical examiner, even though she had been declared dead. Why? Were they calling TMZ first? Were they manipulating things at the scene? Were they getting their stories straight? Were they just sitting around drinking tea, just having fun and laughing and procrastinating until they were going to call why didn't they call the coroner for an hour and a half? 11:40 to 1:05. Why? It was reported that Kim Porter was found unresponsive in bed by family members. Remember that article that said that police officers found her unresponsive in her bed? Well, now this is saying it was family members that found her. So was it police that found her or family members that found her? 911 was dialed and death was determined at the scene. Who dialed 911? Who is it that's saying this?
MS-14, respond with engine 76 on scene of the cardiac arrest.
Oh, I see. This is not the 911 call. This is the dispatch call. Oh, that makes sense. So this is okay. So somebody called 911 and then that dispatcher called and said emergency, people come out, cardiac event, whatever. Okay, interesting. There was no known medical history other than recent cold and flu-like symptoms for the past few days. That contradicts what we were told in the media. We were told she was battling pneumonia for weeks. We were told she was hospitalized. We were told sources allegedly apparently linked to Kim Porter said she was battling pneumonia. But that's not what this investigator's report says. It says, and I quote, there was no known medical history other than recent cold flu-like symptoms. And again, y'all, I've not seen anybody talking about this. I'm not saying they haven't. I know a lot of y'all have been on the beat since 6 years ago when it happened. But why did this woman ask for antibiotics and no one gave them to her? And they're reporting that she had no medical history that was relevant or pertinent. That's not the only time they say it in this report. They say it one page earlier. No known medical history other than recent flu-like symptoms. They tested her for the flu. She tested negative. They tested her for strep. She tested negative. There's these 4 bacteria in her blood, including one that's found in feces. An in-house physician prescribed antibiotics and IV fluids. Well, this is the first time we're told that. It wasn't said that she was prescribed antibiotics before. So unclear. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. And then again, they redact the doctor, PMD. I think that means like primary medical doctor. I was assigned this field call by Lieutenant Smith at about 1:15 p.m. I arrived on the scene at about 3 o'clock. 3:10 in the afternoon. Now they are here all day. These cops are here all day and they got people coming in and out of the house all day. Coroners and medical examiners and police officers, oh my, but also P. Diddy was there. Kimora Lee Simmons, along with her daughter Aoki, was there. Future Yacht Girl of America or whatever, which the BJ investigates on her. Corey Gamble, Kris Jenner's boyfriend, security guard, sugar baby was there. All these people are here in and out of this house all day. Foul play is not suspected. It says forensic attendant M. Sierra and coroner investigator trainee L. Darabedian transported her from the scene to the Forensic Science Center. I spoke with Detective Pettigrew at the scene and he related the following information. So now we're going to get secondhand information from one of the detectives, the homicide guy on the scene. Kim Porter lived at the residence at the above location with her 2 minor children, as well as with her friend and her friend's daughter. So that's information I did not previously have. Kim Porter was living with her friend and her friend's daughter. Who the friend is. It just said, look, I'll put it up on the screen. Lived in the residence at the above location with her 2 minor children, as well as her friend and her friend's daughter. So it's 2 women and 3 kids living in the house. 2018. It says the decedent, that's Kim Porter, the decedent's goddaughter, who was visiting the decedent, had been staying at the residence since the 12th. So the same day that doctor came and finally bothered to do anything for Kim Porter's goddaughter showed up and stayed with her. Who's the goddaughter? I don't know, but she was staying with her for the 3 days preceding her death. Again, they say Kim Porter had no pertinent medical history. This is the part of the autopsy result where I would expect them to say she had pneumonia. Her doctor was treating her for pneumonia. Wouldn't you expect it to say that instead of no pertinent medical history? I would. However, she developed flu-like symptoms approximately 4 days ago and was treated by a house call physician. She was administered saline solution with vitamin mixture by a nurse. Again, where's the antibiotics that she was administered? Because it doesn't say that. It says she was given saline and vitamins. It doesn't say she was given an antibiotic. They can't keep their story straight. She did not have a primary medical physician. Okay, wait. let's rewind to the top of this page. It says PMD, primary medical doctor. So did she or didn't she? Another discrepancy. The last time she was believed to have been examined by a physician was 2 years ago when she had blood work done. She traveled to an unspecified location in Africa and returned home about a month ago, but she did not have any health complaints at the time she returned from her trip. On the evening of the 14th, the night before she died, she said she felt better and she got a deep tissue massage from her goddaughter. Again, the goddaughter who was visiting her. So now we have a little more information on this goddaughter. She's at least old enough to know how to do a deep tissue massage on Kim Porter. Kim then watched movies with family members and went to bed at approximately 23:30, which is like 11:30 p.m. The following morning, at approximately 8:30 a.m., the goddaughter awoke beside the decedent and observed her to be sleeping. Blink and you miss it. But the goddaughter slept in the bed with Kim Porter the night she died. That's what's being told to us here. Now, I have seen elsewhere, I don't know if it's in this report or not, maybe it's the news or tabloids, but this says black and white, clear as day. At 8:30, the goddaughter awoke beside the decedent and observed her to be sleeping. So 8:30 a.m., the goddaughter wakes up in the bed with Kim Porter, looks over, and Kim is asleep. She did not attempt to wake her up. Rouse her is what this says. The goddaughter then left for work. Okay, so the goddaughter is old enough to go to work. Okay, so 8:30 in the morning, the goddaughter who is visiting and has been visiting for 2 days, wakes up next to Kim Porter, sees that she is sleeping, doesn't wake her up, and leaves and goes to work, leaving Kim Porter in the bed. 3 hours later, at approximately 11:30 hours, the decedent was found unresponsive in her bed by her housemates. So was she found by her family? Was she found by her housemates? Was she found by law enforcement? I do not know. Somebody called 911. Firefighters and paramedics from Engine 76 of the Los Angeles Fire Department responded to the scene. They found her lying in the bed, rolled her into a prone position, and death was determined at 11:40. So within 10 minutes, the paramedics and the firefighters get there through the gates, through the neighborhood, into the house, into the bedroom to see Kim Porter, flip her over, flip her back. All this happens in 10 minutes. I mean, it is really astonishing. Then we have some more redacted stuff. The cop says, I spoke with redacted at the scene and he related the following information. I think this is probably the doctor. He spoke with the decedent on that first day that she was asking for antibiotics. She said her throat had been hurting for 2 days and he prescribed a quote Z-Pack at that time. So now again, we are being told that she was administered a Z-Pack. Now he prescribed the Z-Pack. I don't know. What is that, a pill? Yeah, I mean, Pfizer makes it, antibiotics. Okay, so now we get it reported that she did get antibiotics. Sometimes it's been reported she only was treated with vitamins and saline. And I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. By the 10th, 3 days later, her condition had not improved. A nurse responded to the residents and administered the saline solution with the vitamins. But again, we're not told that it was antibiotics. 2 days later, redacted, I'm assuming that's the doctor, responded to the residents. Upon examination of Kim Porter, she was noted to have cold and flu-like symptoms, including nasal congestion, sweats, mild cough, body aches, and sore throat. She had a fever of 102. Her blood pressure and oxygen results were within the normal limits. So this lobar pneumonia is supposed to affect your ability to take in oxygen and all of that, but her oxygen was fine and normal. So that's interesting. A flu swab and a strep test were negative. So interesting. The diagnosis for her at the time was viral flu-like illness. So remember all those reports that a source allegedly close to Kim Porter had stated that she was being treated for pneumonia for weeks? That's not what the doctor told the police. The doctor said, I didn't diagnose her with pneumonia. I diagnosed her with a, quote, viral flu-like illness. He administered an intramuscular injection of Toradol and was given another saline vitamin solution. So he didn't give her no steroids, and he apparently, I guess, didn't give her another Z-Pack or any stronger antibiotics or anything like that. Didn't order any blood work, didn't order to see what the bacteria could have been, didn't order any tests, just gave her saline. The next day, Kim Porter spoke again with the doctor and reported that her temperature was 96 degrees, but she also said she had a mild streak of in her. She was coughing up blood, but then she got a massage and she said she felt better after the massage. She kept on eating even though she felt bad, and she would eat a little bit throughout the period of her illness. And per the doctor, Kim Porter had no other pertinent medical or surgical history. She was not taking any prescription medications. She consumed alcohol on rare occasions, and she had no known history of drug abuse. Then they get into describing the scene, which I won't get into right now. Now, blink and you miss it, but they do go over the condition of the body here. And, that's what we're about to get into for the faint of heart. She was an adult Black woman who appeared to be the reported 47 years of age, black hair, brown eyes, and apparent natural teeth. Congestion was noted to the sclerae, I don't know what that is. Upon palpation of the anterior neck region, a small amount of blood was noted coming out of the right nostril, and white frothy sputum was coming from her mouth. Only time I've ever heard of that is OD death. White frothy sputum was issued from the mouth. She had a bruise on her upper left arm, multiple small red dots, and what appeared to be a bruise was noted on the right upper arm. Wait a second. Not only did she have a huge bruise on her arm, but she had little red dots around it. Now, when I heard that she had a bruise on the upper left arm, I just assumed it was from that Toradol shot, the intramuscular shot that she got. But now I'm wondering, what's these red dots? What appeared to be small bruises were also noted to the bilateral posterior of the upper legs. So both of her legs, her thighs had bruises on them. She had a big bruise on her left arm with a bunch of little red dots, and she had a quote puncture wound on her right hand. She had some surgery scars, and they informed her son she was not married, and organ and tissue procurement was not addressed with the family. So I don't know if she was an organ donor or not. Now, there's a lot more on this autopsy report that I could get into, but I really wanted to point out how what this autopsy result says is completely different than what was being reported at the time. They were already reporting that she had died from pneumonia before the medical examiners even reported that, before they even said that. There was no discussion of pneumonia at all with these police officers. They actually discussed there was no pertinent medical history. And in fact, the diagnosis was a flu-like virus or whatever it was. So I don't know. And you also have Al B. Shore, who needed a whole entire organ transplant. And now he seemingly is blaming it on Diddy. You have Jaguar Wright saying that Ed Winter was thrown off the case after he had speculated or asserted that Kim Porter was poisoned. Now, again, I want to be very clear. I have not found any evidence that anybody said she was poisoned. What I do see is bacteria found in the blood. In my layman's interpretation of what bacteria in the blood means is sepsis. You have a blood infection. It's way beyond just a lung infection. It's in your blood. And she had these specific bacteria that seemed to be foodborne and feces-borne. So how could that have gotten in her blood? I'm just curious. I also know that there are these unnamed doctors showing up, putting God knows what in her IV bag. It's just things to think about. What I also do know for sure is BET was already saying everything you need to know about what killed Kim Porter months before we actually knew what killed Kim Porter. We know that they called the police for a cardiac event. It was reported that she died from cardiac arrest and pneumonia. It's like the stories don't add up. They didn't keep them straight. And it's not really making a lot of sense. Why not? I'm curious, who is this goddaughter who was sleeping in the bed with Kim Porter the night she died? She's old enough to go have a job. She's old enough to know how to do a deep tissue massage. So I'm thinking this ain't like an 8-year-old. This somebody's going to work at least 16, 17 years old, possibly up, 30, 20, 35. I don't know. How old is a goddaughter? I don't know. Now, I did try to look up who are Kim Porter's godchildren. And it's kind of weird because all these people, Kimora Lee Simmons, Tyra Banks, and Kim Porter, and all, they seem to make a lot of people their kids' godmothers. It looks like Aoki and Ming have 2-3 godmothers. So I don't know who's who. I really don't know who's who. But in the process of looking this up, actually, Ethan had found this one. We ended up running into this other side story about Erica Kennedy, the lady who wrote Bling in 2004, which was like based on P. Diddy's circle and parties, and then that lady died in Miami. There's a whole nother thing about that coming out soon, but this video is already long enough. I think the fact that there was no pneumonia mentioned at all in this autopsy report, in this investigation report, in any of this, the fact that they had a homicide detective show up to the scene at first, Pettique, the fact that the doctors redacted, Corey Gamble was on the scene, P. Diddy himself showed up on the scene, okay? I don't know. I don't know. I learned this on Criminal Minds, which is a fiction show. But what I learned on the fiction show Criminal Minds is that a killer will very often come and attempt to help in the investigation. They will very often come and look to make sure that their little what they did was taken care of. He was also cheesing at her funeral, and he gave the eulogy at Kim Porter's funeral. I know I've given 10 million disclaimers during this video, but I do just want to re-disclaim one more time. I am not a doctor and I have no idea what I am talking about. I am reading a public record, which I have shown you what I have read. That is what I am relying on. I don't have any extra information more than anybody else. I have no inside information at all. Anybody can request this autopsy report. It is public record. I do have some outstanding questions, and I'm sure y'all do too, so make sure to leave those in the comments down below. There is an episode of BJ Investigates podcast coming out today, the same day that I'm putting this out. You might have just came from it. We're going to talk a little bit more about Erica Kennedy, who was friends with Kim Porter and also was the godmother to one of Kimora Lee Simmons's children. She wrote this book and she died in Miami. I requested her autopsy report too, and we're going to talk about that on the BJ Investigates podcast. You need to go back to BJ Investigates, and I'll link it down below and watch that, because we do talk more about this autopsy. We talk more about Kim Porter's death, Erica Kennedy's death, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it in this investigation. That's all I really had for today. In the meantime, facts ain't defamation, and neither are opinions. Love you, mean it, bye.
Something right now, because I know you're watching. I will be saying everything you tried to do to me.